Lee has this new book coming out, as Leah was talking about, Conversation with Disease, and I've had a chance to read that book. And not many times in my life have I read a book where it's actually changed the course of my life significantly. And Leah can attest to this. But because of this book, basically it's this channeling where a psychotherapist is asking all these questions to this entity, this body of energy that Lee channels. And the questions are so amazing. But one of the things that came about in me reading this book was these practices of getting in touch with spirit. And one of the things that you've talked about that you were doing is that you would start inviting in these spiritual beings in writing, calling them in. And I started practicing that, and I have felt this energy that I've never felt before. And I actually feel like I'm channeling. I'm not professing that I'm a channel, but it's doing something to me that has never been done. I'm in touch with spirit on a level that it's been a while since I felt this good. So thank you. I would love, just to start off by having you tell our audience the story of how you got to this point in your life.
Well, firstly, thank you guys for having me here. And I'm so happy to hear that. It's amazing. Well, channeling for me was very much a kind of sidebar in personal development and metaphysics. It wasn't the thing I was interested in, and it wasn't the thing I was looking for. I was someone who, at the age of, when I first started channeling, I was 23. And I had at that point been going for tarot readings and shamanic workshops and yoga workshops and healing workshops and, reading all the books that I could since I was about 16, when I had come out of a childhood where the short version is, the sensitive, empathic side of me that was intuitive, that had no tutoring. Even though I had a family that looked after me, supported me, there was no one in my world who could help me understand that side of me. So I turned against myself and got into some really self-destructive behaviors, and then started to see the light again at the age of 16, and started to crawl slowly out of that. It took a few years, of course, to even get to the point where you're like, oh, okay, I'm okay. I'm connected again. But what happened for me was I was on the London Underground, which is the subway train, going to my job in fundraising. That was a job I cared about because it was fundraising. But my real dream and passion at that time was being a singer-songwriter. And that was I was pouring all my energy into. So I was on the train, and I literally, that morning, was going through all of the thoughts in my head, of which I had many, and they were very judgmental. And at that point, I was just beginning to understand what self-attack was mentally. I was just beginning to understand that the negative stories we tell ourselves about ourselves, how they just keep locking us in and how they keep keeping us away from life. And I was just beginning to understand that part of my psyche and to begin to work with it. So lo and behold, the contrast of the channeled message was just profound. So I remember vaguely the first conversation, but what I do remember about it was I was going through a relationship issue I was having at the time, and I was convinced it was this other person's fault, as the ego will do. I was like, well, this isn't my fault. This is clearly their problem. And just this voice from the left, literally, it was something along the lines of, that's a very interesting perspective, but you're wrong. And I was like, what? Because I'd never heard that. I'd heard my own thoughts. At that point, I was about a year and a half into writing music for the first time and composing. So that was kind of like a miracle frequency that I'd kind of found. And they've later told me they got to me through music first. That channel opened, and then they were able to get me verbally. And they said they'd been around me since I was a kid, but from the age of 6, I had shut them out. And it's funny, I had this one recurring dream that I can now look back on and go, oh, that was them. It was these 2 very tall figures in my living room downstairs in the first house that we lived in. And I would come down the stairs at night from my bedroom, and I'd go into the living room, and there was this television in the corner, and people probably don't know what this is now, but do you remember when TV used to have like static? The channel would end the programming and it would be those black and white dots, and all you would hear is so the static would be happening. That's all I could hear. And in either corner of the room, there was this, what looked like a male figure and a female figure. And the female figure had like a very big blonde afro. And it wasn't, I say it's an afro, that's too literal, but I kind of think, well, was it like a big halo, or I don't know what it was. And they were literally going like this. They were trying to tell me something, and I couldn't hear it because of the television static. I had this recurring dream, the only recurring dream I had for years, and I never knew what it meant. And when I met them, I was like, was that you? And they were like, yeah. They were like, well, we'll try. They say that we all have the ability to connect with either our guides, the voices of what they call our oversoul or our higher self. For example, we're all influenced by each other right now. We three, and even anyone listening or tuning in on this, we're all slightly influenced by each other. We're all slightly becoming each other. Or if there's something one of us says that we don't like, we'll defend against it and become a bit more another side of ourselves. So they say it's far more amorphous than we choose to see it. And as humans, thus far, we have been programmed to forget our connection to spirit. But for me that day, it was very clear. And as I asked them questions, I thought, well, is this multiple personality disorder? Because this is a very clear voice that has opinions that I don't possess. And it has wisdom and intuition and perspective on things going on in my life that I don't write down the questions so I could write down the answers. But it was very clear to me very quickly that they were home. And my biggest challenge was, how the hell am I going to tell anybody about this? And I don't want to be that person who everyone thinks is, or, either they don't believe you, or they think you're making it up, or it scares them, or it makes them pull away from you. And I certainly experienced all of those things in the first few years. So, I learned pretty quickly, okay, well, this is a part of me that isn't going away. So how do I learn to live with it and through it?
Yeah.
So I think I heard you saying something about questions and answers. Did you start nurturing it by writing, by talking, by asking questions? What was your process in the beginning?
It's funny, my process in the beginning and my process now are the same. So I could, for example, we could be talking now, and all I will do is place my attention for them, if I'm speaking to them in my head, if you like, is still to the left of my body. It's different for everybody, but for me, it's left and diagonal above my head. And there's a voice that's probably 2 feet above my head to the left. That's where the location point is for me. So I can just have a quick chat with them like that about something, but still to this day, the reason I will get my computer out, I will put the date at the top of the document, and then I will either have specific questions, or I will literally write, "How am I doing?" ? And then I let fall onto the page what's supposed to fall onto the page. And I will do that fairly regularly, sometimes more regularly than others. It just depends what's going on in my life or what I'm wondering about. And the reason I started doing that at the beginning was I wanted to test it, because I thought, well, hang on, I need to really test this. So I would ask personal questions about other people in my life, and also questions about more universal concepts. And the reason I wanted the writing at the time, I think it was pen and paper. The reason I wanted it was so that I could go back and look at it. Even today, the reason I put the date is I'll sometimes go, oh, hang on a second, I think they said something about this like 6 months ago. And I'll go back and I'll pull through the papers and I'll find it and I'll go, oh. And so for me, it's not necessarily that I live by every prediction or I mobilize myself around their predictions, because I think you have to see it as a two-way street. Spirit is not in charge of your life. It is not in charge of your destiny and your free will, but it is here to help you walk a more coherent path with it. So I like to stay open to the things that come through, but I also like to be able to go back and go, And the big tell for me was the people in my life. I would be unsure about something with a friend or a family member, and I would ask them a question about it, and they would go, well, they're behaving this way because they're scared. And they're scared because, and I'd be like, oh. And then I'd go and be with that family member and I'd go, oh my God, like I couldn't see that before. But they helped me develop my own intuition and empathy because they would give me information that I perhaps hadn't yet caught up to. And so then, of course, you know, like anything, over time, if we practice trying on that awareness or ingraining that awareness, it slowly over time starts to affect your everyday normal. I'm thrilled to announce that we are bringing initiation back for 2022. We first held it at the end of last year, and it is a channeled mystery school. Even I don't fully know what my guides will bring through in the weekly transmissions, but their intent, and this is the message they've given me, is to synchronize us with the frequencies, the information, and the energies for this passage of time that we're moving through. I can attest that it was very powerful last year, and we had over 5,000 people join us from all around the world, so it was an incredible container. This year, we are starting initiation on October 26th, and for those of you who would like to join us live, I will be doing weekly live broadcasts where I channel my guides for 90 minutes each time. And in between those live broadcasts, I like to deliver what I call a calibration video, where I will guide you through the energetic and psychological process that we go through. If you want to watch it on replay, you will have lifetime access to all of the material. So whether you can join us live or not, you will get around 10 hours worth of material. This includes a welcome MP3 message from my guides, all about what the initiation journey is designed to be and what you will be inviting into your life as you take this ride with us. We are also giving you our brand new album Timelines, which we have paired with the course, and you will be receiving that 2 months ahead of everyone else. Alongside that, we have self-care guides and a wonderful community forum where you can share with other members of the group what you're going through, how you're experiencing it, and there is so much medicine in that community. These are always very exciting and slightly unknown events for me, because in turning over to my guides as much as I'm about to, I always know that we're going to go on a very shamanic journey. But it always seems to intersect perfectly with what's going on in the world at that time and what those of us who show up for the journey are bringing in and calling in for our year to come. So if initiation